So the folks that just joined us, starting with you, Claudia, I'd like to have them, oh, maybe Dawn, if you're sitting there. Why don't you introduce yourselves and just tell a little bit about yourself so people know what kind of questions to ask you. And hopefully everybody's thinking up some good questions. I think this is definitely a good question session. So Dawn, you want to introduce yourself?
Ladies first.
Oh, ladies first.
Ladies
Okay,
first.
Joellen, why don't you go then?
Hi, everyone. My name's Joelle Denig. I am a customer success manager at Tulip Interfaces. I've had the pleasure of working with Kelvin and his team. I started my career in manufacturing as a manufacturing engineer and sort of transitioned into the business development side, looking at advanced manufacturing technologies, building out business cases, doing some pilots, and then transitioning them to production. I was previously a Tulip customer as well, and then I joined the team at Tulip to help support implementation and customer journeys on their digitization journey, so to speak. So that's a little bit about my background.
Claudia?
Claudia Chandra.
Pull the mic so you can
Claudia
hear.
Chandra. I am Chief Product Officer of Honeywell Connected Industrials, and of course, Exxon is a key customer of ours. My background is over 20 years in the data management AI application space, and more recently applying that background to industrial automation.
Dawn?
So I'm Don Bartusiak. So I'll tell you who I am in a second, but I'm pinch hitting here because Janice is such a nice person. When she asked me to help her out with the panel, I could not say no. So I'm currently the president of Collaborative Systems Integration, CSI for short. I'm retired as the chief engineer for process control from Exxon Mobil Research and Engineering. I'm also a former co-chairman of the Open Process Automation Forum that is creating the Open Process Automation standard that you've heard Whit and the ExxonMobil team talk a lot about this week.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any questions from the audience? I guess we can start with that. Or while you're thinking about a question, I have some, like, I was just like amazed at the different types of technologies and things and what people have been doing. And so one of the things, I guess, just because the future is now, so what do you think are the key enablers for smart manufacturing and for operations today? So I can address the panel with that question.
I guess I can answer that.
Pull it over to yourself. You push it over to you.
Yeah. So there are a number of key enablers. I think a key one is industrial platform that's highly secure and scalable to enable applications to provide advanced analytics, AI, ML capabilities in a streamlined manner from edge to cloud and from cloud to edge back to provide the actual actions and controls on the plant floor. And one that is highly cost effective and efficient from an infrastructure platform perspective as well as an application perspective that's highly scaled in the cloud. Secondly, is sensorization, right? To enable the collection of data. I think everybody here talks about the need for data, good quality data, to enable all of the advanced analytics and AI ML capabilities. And then thirdly is an integrated, multimodal digital twin type of capabilities where you can model and simulate all the different types of, whether it's different entities within a plant or whether it's process, workers, equipment, assets, the enterprise, and sustainability, the different aspects of a plant, and actually, simulate it and optimize it and feed it back so that the model can be adjusted and as the operation of the plant is happening, so that there's a feedback loop there to adjust the different models and the simulation and continuously adapt to it. And then data we talk about, data management capabilities to enable AI ML, and not only the data management, but also a way to represent the data in a way that you can easily connect and link the data to perform things like root cause analysis and diagnostics, as well as prescription and prediction and prognostications, right? And of course, the AI agents, AI assistants and AI agent capabilities to actually help in productivity and provide the automated autonomous actions based on the data.
Okay, would anybody else like to add to that, or? Okay, well, I have another question for you guys.
You want? I think.
Oh, okay, Whit, go ahead.
I was going to add a little something, but I think that was awesome. Those are a lot of the elements that we talk about. Data, of course, first and foremost, got to have access to the data. The data has to be of sufficient quality, right? So making sure that that's there. We talk an awful lot about making sure there's a governance structure when you're talking about data, right? So it's one thing to get it, but you have to be able to sustain getting that data. Who's looking after that quality? Who's accountable for that quality? How do we store it? How do we access it? All of those things need to be thought through. Same thing when we're talking about strategies around leveraging AI and other models, right? It's one thing to build a model, it does great things, but models tend to drift over time. And so there's a sustainment tail to this that needs to be thought through. And so, one of the lessons we've been learning is to be more strategic in our approach, right? So not just to do a bunch of what my boss used to call random acts of AI, but rather have a more strategic approach so that we can have that sustainment piece, right? That we're not building something that's going to create a bunch of technical debt for us, and that we're going to have trouble with in the future. So those are other aspects that I would add to that.
Kelvin, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So also, to stay competitive in the market and as the in different business aspects, I think Janice had a slide up. AI is being leveraged in other businesses, right? And honestly, if you want to stay competitive, you kind of have to adapt, right? So you're gonna obviously leverage the AI to work in your favor, just to stay competitive or get the edge. I mean, I know one thing that we're seeing now is we had the data, but now it becomes this cluster of information, and it's kind of a forest that you need to really kind of extrapolate and really understand it. And with AI, that's the goal, is to be able to clear the forest and just really look at the goal, and to help you get that answer just that much more quicker, because the quicker the reaction time, the more, again, you can get to your bottom line, which is your revenue, right? And that's what we all care about at the end of the day, is just how can we get to that revenue that much more quicker.
So I guess, is there any more questions from the audience? Okay, well, I have some questions. So for companies that were getting started today around the digital transformation and even with AI, are there some, like, other than some of the things that were already said, are there other things that you would tell them to do to get started? Or what would you tell them? What words of wisdom could you give them?
Some words of wisdom I would say is, before you would take on this AI endeavor and you want to really fully automate your process, is to first understand your process, right? As I mentioned, our plant was shutters 2021. So we really need to understand how the plant was going to function, right? And, one thing my boss always says is, hey, if you can't do it on paper, you can't automate it, right? So that's one thing I really stress, is just to make sure you understand your process, do the due diligence up front, make sure that you understand the ins and outs of it. So when you're in your implementation phase and development phase, you have less headaches, you don't have all these unanswered questions, right? Everything should go smooth. So that's one thing I would say.
If I can add to that, I think most operating companies understand their process reasonably well. It's not a comment against the comment. I think it's also important to understand the state of the art, and not just believe what you hear from one vendor or two vendors. if you can afford it, and sometimes it's a luxurious process to have, employees that have been tasked with, understanding the state of the art so that you can get a sense of what is the best solution for your business problem rather than just buying and trying.
Okay, Joelle, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I think at Tulip, when we look at where to begin, whether that's digitization or starting with AI, we talk about the impact and the ease of implementation. So starting somewhere that will be really impactful for your business, but it's not going to require a very large uplift in terms of time or resources to get your team accustomed to different solutions, different platforms, get the value as soon as possible, and then continue to grow and expand as you launch towards that larger vision.
Okay, I'm going to riff off of two comments. So going back to Don's comment, yeah, totally agree. Like if you can have that in-house capability to understand state of the art, that's great. Not everyone's going to have that. So there are consultancy. There's probably more than you want to know. There's tons of people out there that are willing to help you out in this journey. So probably taking a look and shopping around and maybe getting a couple opinions could help as well while you're building that competency internally. I also wanted to riff on a little bit of the, hey, have a vision, but you got to start somewhere. And starting small with a few very well-defined use cases instead of trying to boil the ocean. I've seen much more success with, we're trying to do this one thing as opposed to, we're trying to do all of these things. Have very little luck in trying to do all of these things and focus on one or two clear things that are consistent with the vision that you're trying to get to, and then work from there.
So
Yeah.
what? Oh,
Oh,
okay.
I would just like to add that I think, it's not just AI for AI's sake, right? It's identifying the right use case where data and AI can actually make a difference. There are some cases where actually it's not just AI, but also domain knowledge is relevant and is needed to get, whatever accuracy or answers you need. So it's really identifying the right use cases where data and AI can make a big difference and complementing things like first principles and domain knowledge.
So there's been a lot of like new technologies that we saw. So did you find that how did the operations people adapt to the technologies? Like I love Waze and I'm glad I started using it, but sometimes just getting them to use it is the other part. And so I was wondering if you could comment on that a little bit. Does anybody want to comment? Kelvin?
For sure, it's most definitely with the operation team. Of course, there's some resistance in the beginning, right? People are definitely, not all, but some are resistant to change. But I think once you illustrate how it can benefit them and ultimately make their jobs easier, and more efficient, they're definitely on board. But of course, for us, and even in this Tulip journey, we've had some operators that say, "Hey, I can do this on paper all day. Why do I need this system for? I can do this, no problem." But I just think that just explain to personnel, what are the benefits, and also get them involved in the process. That most definitely is a big help when doing these things. If you give some of the ownership to the personnel using the tool, they're definitely willing to embrace it more.
Yeah, I just want to echo that last comment because that's exactly where I was going to go to. Getting champions, getting them engaged in the process sooner rather than later can really make a big difference. So if you have somebody coming from a community, say process operations, and you have a few operators that are involved in helping to define the vision, define what the product is going to be, define what the change is going to be and how it's going to roll out, they'll go back and help to bridge the gap with the rest of the organization. So it's perfectly normal. People do resist change. I think that's to be expected. I have never tried to drive a change throughout my career without there being resistance. I'm saying that mildly. And so there are different ways of gaining collaborators that can help make that journey easier.
Yeah, and to get into the specifics of managing the human change process, I think that there's frequently the tendency to vet with the most senior people in the current work process that you're trying to affect. I don't think that's the only criterion that you should use. Open-mindedness is part of it, and sometimes it's not the most senior person on whatever you're trying to affect. There's other criteria that should be used, and everybody say, "Oh, I understand how to do change management," but it's really, really hard to do, and it's really individually case dependent. And like Witt's saying, you can't give up if you get no, 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 no. You got to keep trying.
Persistent.
Yeah. Okay. And getting people on board is really, really important.
Are you sure, Don?
Yeah, change management is hard, and I've been on both sides of it, so I do know that. One of the other things, I think someone mentioned citizen development, and could you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing around citizen development, Joelle?
Yeah, so with the Tulip platform and being so customizable, what we found is with that change management piece, having site level manufacturing engineers, operational leaders be empowered to develop their own solutions. Every manufacturing operation, even if it's in the same enterprise, is going to be unique in its own ways. And they need that ability to work on their unique solutions. So something we showcase at Tulip is the concept of citizen development, where maybe if you are a large enterprise, you have a central COE, center of excellence that is kind of driving the larger vision, able to produce some standard solutions that can go to all the sites, but then at the site level, being able to modify and adjust as needed, as well as create specific solutions for those sites individually.
So thank you. Anybody else want to mention? Kelvin, do you have anything? No. Okay. Okay. The other one is about the AI. So we heard a lot about AI assistants and AI agents throughout the forum, about delivering higher levels of productivity and optimization. And so I guess the question is, how can we make these AI agents smarter? Claudia?
It's all about the data. Having the right data, having continuous training, and continuously monitoring and monitoring drift, like Whit mentioned, so that you retrain as there's drift in the concept, the input, etc., and continuously update the model, right? So it needs to be you need good data, you need good quality data, and you need the right training data set, enough training data set, and continuous learning.
Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah, just to echo that statement, I mean, the more information you can give the model to be better predictive, the greater it can be. For example, some of the things we're kind of looking into, as well as getting accurate forecasting for shipping. So when we buy aluminum from mills all across the world, just trying to calculate what the shipping cost will be, kind of the FOB, the handling, right? And just if we can have an AI just do all that for us and just, hey, feedback, hey, yep, this is what the results were, this is what it was, this is definitely spot on, or hey, we were off by this much, and just so we can tweak it and have it learn and get better, that would be a big thing.
And I was going to say data is really important. And tomorrow I do have a session in this same room on data and data platforms. So I think it'll be very important and some very interesting information. So I think you'll be excited if you come to that session. That's another future session. So as you look ahead to the future, What do you think some of the challenges are going to be? You know, we heard about change management and a few of the other challenges. What do you think the newer challenges will be?
Well, I think using the right tool or technology for the job, and it's not like AI is going to take over everything and replace all of the technologies that we're currently using, whether it's in control or manufacturing execution, inventory, supply chain. Understanding and applying what the right tool for the job is, and the set of technologies that's required. I'll give you a real case in point. One that I have a lot of deep firsthand knowledge with, like planning and scheduling in ExxonMobil. Um, as advanced as ExxonMobil was, I mean, planning and scheduling and the refining and chemicals operations was still highly manual. I mean, these highly skilled engineers had to manually enter tank levels like on a weekly basis. They would assume that contents of materials in a tank was homogeneously mixed when they knew there was stratification. This is like really fundamental stuff. Like, where's the sensors? Where's the automated data acquisition? So you got to have those fundamentals in place before you think about, agentic AI. Make sure you got, the fundamentals in place first before you try to apply advanced technologies that when you can't paper over the fundamental problems in understanding your process and managing it.
So you got to walk before you run, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just kind of echo that statement, as well as, sometimes, industries may be kind of stuck in the past. For example, if you've been using paper, if you've been logging all your information and just storing it in a file drawer somewhere, it may be a daunting task to take that information and digitize it, right? So I know companies have struggled with that and try to, hey, we have all these historical data. We just can't throw it away. We can start fresh, but what happens to the old stuff, right? So I think just finding an easy way to what they have in the past, be able to digitize that much more easier, just so we can then just transition to AI and, like I said, just take baby steps though, but transition and get everything working correctly. I think that's a big impact.
Okay, we have
Yeah.
any more questions from the audience? Somebody.
Hold on,
Duncan?
we had another
Oh, I'm
comment.
sorry.
No,
Okay,
Well,
Claudia.
The only thing I was going to add is, talking about foundational problems. I think a lot of companies are still struggling with data silos, is integrating data. Ultimately getting to a smart AI agent requires the right information and all the information from the different silos to be unleashed and actually fed to the AI agent.
Right. Let me
We did-
pile on to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I guess going back to some of the earlier comments. So it's 100% true. Like we talk about AI, like it's going to save us all. It's another tool in the toolkit. We've got a lot of them. A lot of them are predicated or centered around data access, right? Including some of the elements that Don's talking about. And so those are elements that we seek in the future to improve on how we're censored, how we're delivering data from the industrial level up to the analytic level. So there are elements there. We're trying to automate a lot of things that we've done manually in the past, right? I mean, so there is basic blocking and tackling that isn't necessarily AI, but it is part of digitization. So depending on how you want to, scope it, it is part of an overall journey as we're moving from 120-year-old refineries and how we've operated it to trying to have a different way of working. And that includes, we're used to having people at the site do a lot of that. We're really looking to have that work be done elsewhere now. It doesn't have to necessarily be folks that are within the fence line that's doing that work. So we're really challenging ourselves in how and where we do work and leveraging the right infrastructure for data to be able to accomplish that.
Okay, I think we have a question from the audience.
Yeah, hey all, Eric DeVoy from BP. Kelvin, I appreciate you sharing your story, and Whit, you had a number of different success stories, which was good. I guess my question is kind of more upfront, and I agree with the start small. how do you do the discovery to figure out what problems you want to solve, and what level of business case you put around it before you kind of get after those use cases?
Who wants to take that one? Okay, I'll start with that. That's a great question. So I've seen it. I've seen it go a couple of ways, right? So sometimes we find a really cool tool, and we go in search of a problem for it to solve. That's one way, and every once in a while that works, but sometimes it really doesn't. We've been successful sometimes at defining a business problem to go after, and then leaning on the talents of our people to go off and understand state of the art, understand what state of the industry is, and how can we approach this in a competitive way. So I've seen that happen as well. Establishing the business case, boy, that's tricky. It always is. So anytime you want to spend money, you need to demonstrate there's value behind that money. And as a previous session I was in, sometimes you can only get so far in terms of what the crystal ball will show you. When you know there's potentially more value out there. And so you just have to create as crisp of a business case as you can and acknowledge that, hey, we don't know everything, but we think this is good and there's upside potential to this if we can capture this value. So that's generally how we've approached that.
Kelvin?
Yeah, there's a kind of add on to that. Even with our project with Tula, we try to identify in terms of the business cases, is the current process a flat tire or not, for lack of a better term, right? So are we trying to address a critical problem, or are we trying to do a nice to have, right? So we try to really identify that. I really identify that and understand, okay, well, then if we, go down this path, what's kind of the ROI of it? What are we trying to, what result are we trying to see? Is it money? Is it saved employee time? Is it labor? Whatever it is. And really trying to dive in and understand that, and make sure you have that strong understanding and put that business case together. I mean, I think that's kind of what it is.
Eric, if I can elaborate on Whit's point a little bit, within a big company, you probably have people, you have your technologists and you'll have your business unit and your line manufacturing people. I think it's really important to have that dialogue between the technology part of your corporation and the business unit part of the corporation, not as a supplier-customer dialogue, but rather as a co-owner dialogue, so that everybody's taking risk in these propositions, and you need to make that risk-based decision jointly, not as a supplier-customer relationship, as a co-owner.
Okay, well, we have time for one more question. Our
Perfect.
audience.
So Lou Stocko with USG. This is for Whit. You showed some of the art of the possible in some of the areas like machine vision and some data science based and deep machine learning based. In order to do those, did you upskill existing resources, reskill, already have the resources, new skill, hire off the street? What was your approach to implementing those?
I think for almost all of those, we were leveraging skills we had within the corporation. So some of that stuff came out of our research arm, right? And so they have a remit to look and keep their eye on the art of the possible and push the boundaries. And so some of that comes down through that, and then that comes to engineering, and then engineering figures out how to make it happen, right? So computer vision's a good example of that, right? So in the early days, trying to figure out how to leverage AI techniques to do something like that, like derive an opacity number numeric out of a video stream, right? It seems like old hat now, but back then it was like, ooh, that's really cool. And so we were able to take that and package it up and demonstrate a use case that made sense to use. So yeah, I don't think in any case we've had to necessarily hire off the street explicitly to go after an event like that or an initiative like that. We've happened to have it in-house, but we're a very big corporation, so we have lots of people.
Yep. And just one last follow-up then. So the sustain and maintain, is that done? It sounds like you kind of have an innovation type group that developed it, but the sustain and maintain for ongoing operations, does that stay within that group, or does that migrate into other parts of the operation?
Yeah, so typically if it's something that comes out of a research part of our organization, they're not sustainers or maintainers, right? So if it comes to engineering is in charge of that. And whenever we talk about sustain and maintain, It's always a little bit different, depends on the technology, and we always have that conversation because the last thing we want to do is put a bunch of stuff out there that we can't sustain. So that's part of our overall, like, is this something that we're going to scale, right? And so we don't want to throw technology out there that's kind of one-offs. What we really want to do is take advantage of that technology at scale. And if you're going to do it at scale, you need to have a strategic approach and you need to have a sustainability plan to make sure that it doesn't just wither on the vine within weeks or months.
Okay. Well, I think we just about have time to, I would like to give all the panelists and the speakers a chance to just give the audience one key quick takeaway. We just go right down the line and, as a way to close our session. So Dawn, do you want to give the audience a key takeaway?
Use the right tool for the job.
Claudia?
Identify the right use case to apply the technology, whether it's AI, ML, or something else.
Whit?
Wow, these sound like sound bites. Start small, then scale.
Joel?
User experience plus ease of use equals usage.
And Kelvin?
Get your team members involved so you can sustain change.
So I'd like to just give a hand to all these speakers and the panelists. They did a great job, great use cases. And I wanted to thank the audience too for coming, and also to remind you that tonight the Universal buses will be outside here. And to please come. It's a lot of fun. So thank you.